Welcome to Board Certified, expert interview episodes about medical licensing exams and healthcare careers. I'm Tyler, founder of Achievable, and we offer affordable adaptive online prep courses for the USMLE Step 1, MCAT, PTCE, NPTE, and others. Each course contains everything you need to succeed, including comprehensive study guides, video lessons, thousands of practice questions powered by our memory enhancing algorithm, and full length practice exams. You can get a free trial of any course by going to achievable.me. And if you like it, be sure to use the code podcast to save 10%. Now, let's get started. Today, we've got Dr. Hashmi with us, and I'd love if you could introduce yourself.
Hi guys, I am Dr. Maheen Hashmi. I graduated medical school last year from Dow University of Health Sciences, Karachi, Pakistan. I did all my USMLE step 1, 2, and 3 within a single academic year, along with my final year medical school exams. I accidentally topped my medical school and I graduated with a 3.8 GPA. I then applied for the match. I dual applied, so I applied for internal medicine and family medicine respectively. I got a great number of interviews and I matched with my number one program at University of Alabama in internal medicine. So I'm gonna be starting my residency in a week. It's kind of nerve-wracking, but yeah.
Well, that's really exciting, and congratulations on that. Why we're here today is to talk through the match process. So, I think let's start out by talking about um, which programs you're going to apply to, and maybe that can kind of start with how did you search for the programs and how did you land on University of Alabama?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, because you know that when you're in medical school, you have zero guidance. You just know whatever you know off of your seniors. So when I started applying to programs, one thing about me that stood out was my year of graduation. Because I was applying as a fresh grad, I had greater chances of getting matched. I love the South and I love the people over there, always really friendly. So I think that is what stood out to me at University of Alabama. But the process in itself was kind of really, you know, nerve wracking. um,
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, I think definitely it's important to be looking for a place that you feel culturally aligned with, especially if you're an international medical graduate coming from, outside the US, right? And so, I mean, what made you want to be a US based doctor and what got you started on this journey with that?
Very interesting. So I come from Pakistan, Karachi. It is one of the most underdeveloped countries all across the globe, along with India. So we've had our challenges in terms of healthcare. We have zero access to health from where I come from, and there is a huge refugee burden from Afghanistan because of the Afghanistan war that has been going on since a very long time. So Afghani people, they migrated to Pakistan, and there was a huge influx of immigrants into our country with zero access to healthcare. There's no insurances going on over there, no EMR. So, it kind of felt like that, we're not achieving much in our country as a doctor because we did not have access to good training. And US kind of stood out to me in terms of training because whatever doctors, best doctors we have across the globe, they are from US trained programs. And that
Mhm.
is what stood out to me whenever we watched YouTube videos, Instagram Reels, TikToks. We saw those doctors, dancing happily in their TikTok shorts. And us back in Pakistan, we're just crying all the day as doctors because we cannot do much for our patients. So that is what kind of stood out to me. I wanted to give the best to my people, and for that, I needed to be the best. And that is how I kind of searched about it. US and UK were two of the countries that stood out to me, but when I explored UK, the NHS is kind of going bankrupt. We don't have much of the resources in the NHS. And there are a lot of NHS doctors kind of moving to US for a better medical career. So I was like, okay, I can't go to the UK, US it is. That is how I embarked on the journey.
Great. Yeah, and I think it's also important to be thinking not just about the programs and, like you said, sort of how well funded the programs are and things like that, but also what kind of education you're going to get. Because I don't know, it's obviously not equivalent, but what I found is that I started my career, and this is obviously in tech, but like working at some smaller companies where, we were kind of doing things a little bit, let's say, ad hoc. And then when I got to a couple bigger companies, it was like, oh, this is like how like big, like this is how the best do it, right? And learning from that, and then being able to bring that home, I think is really important. And I also wanted to, going from that, I feel like you are kind of a special case in some ways because it seems like you were already very qualified when you were applying outward to other countries. But I also think that what you're talking to right now, to me, feels a lot like it is sort of what's motivated you to do this, right? And so, did those kind of things and that motivation come into play in your personal statement and other things like that? How did you kind of tell this story about why you wanted to come to the US and how did that help you get into a match program?
So I am also the founder of an NGO that I created for the underserved communities of my city, hometown Karachi. We were dealing with a lot of issues. Scabies was an epidemic over there. Polio is an epidemic over there. Polio is eradicated worldwide, but still it's a remaining issue in Pakistan. We don't have vaccinations. We don't have screening protocols. We don't have insurances to cover for the medications. So we don't have a lot of things over there, and there aren't any specified programs for children to get enrolled. There isn't any CPS like Child Protective Services or Adult Protective Services going on. So there were like a lot of problems, and we took into catering a certain amount of problems by creating this NGO and collecting funds all over Pakistan and even internationally. So I think in order to provide or to build a medium of that channel to kind of help those people, I wanted to get that sort of exposure myself. And that kind of played a role in my personal statement. I was also involved in an accident. My mother had thyroid cancer and she had her thyroidectomy done. So, when you're in third year or fourth year of medical school, so I was 22 at that time, and me being the eldest daughter, I had to do everything: household work, outside work, NGO work, and then my sports, and like a lot of things were going on at that time. So I think it was like a juxtaposition of all of those things into my personal statement. That is how I said it. I'm a great storyteller, so I can explain situations very, very in a scenic form. And I wrote it down that way in my personal statement. And I was really commended on my personal statement as well in terms of residency programs. They really liked how I wrote that down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think in general, it's important to I think that you get a lot further with residency programs by having a compelling reason why you're doing this. I think that in the United States, most doctor programs or most doctors still are doing it in part for the desire to help people and the desire to do good in the world. And so aligning with that is going to be very helpful, I think. My next question for you, I want to talk about this idea of smart signaling. And you mentioned this, but I actually haven't heard of that before. So can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so we know that residency application process has been changing a lot over a period of time. And when I applied in the 2025 match, I had around like 15 signals for internal medicine and 7 signals for family medicine. So signaling is like a smart way of telling the programs that, hey, we're interested in you, please take us. And so it's kind of like letter of intent, which students used to send earlier, but LOIs have become redundant over the period of years because of the signaling. Now, the programs only consider those applicants, or most of the times we consider those applicants who have signaled them, because if they've got thousands of applications, they will give priority to those students who said, hey, I'm interested in you, please take me, right? So most likely they will give interviews onto those people, and will reject all of the applications later on. Smart signaling is basically a way of kind of telling the residency programs, hey, I'm interested in you, please take me. So what you do is that you basically take into account your credentials, your scores, your research experiences, your US clinical experiences, or whatever foundational work you have done over the course of medical school, and kind of seeing which program prefers what. Like there are some programs who prefer research more. There are some programs who would prefer the volunteering work more. Some programs like younger graduates. So all of that, you make a list and then you kind of signal those programs that align with your credentials or who are known to take people like you. And they will give you the interview and they will also rank you higher because of that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, everybody wants somebody who's there to be someone who wants to be there because they're looking for a doctor who's going to stay for the long term and not necessarily just use it as a stepping stone to get the job they really want somewhere else. I think that's very important. Well, so then the next question I had is about just like the process of doing the match. So let's say you apply to places and then they're interested in you. Is the next step is an interview? Is that correct? And then can you tell me a bit about that?
So if you have you have to kind of again tell them that hey, I'm interested in you. So you're gonna either call them or you're either gonna send a follow up email post application to kind of know what your status is. And after that, the next step is an interview invitation. They will give you an interview invite. Sometimes post interview, they would want you to have a second look at the program, which means that they will either invite you personally to the program or they will give you a virtual tour about what the program is, what it stands for, what its mission is. The residents will come and tell you a little bit about their life over there, about the city, about all of those stuff. And after that is basically the interview day. So you are well prepared about the program. You know a lot about the program because you've already had the second look. You've interacted with the residents. You know a little bit more about the program. So you have an interview, and after the interview is the ranking, in which you rank every program, and then you submit the rank order list. And after that is the match day, the D day.
Right. Do you have any tips for people going into interviews, particularly IMGs?
First tip that I would, and the only tip I give to anyone is just be yourself. Be unapologetically yourself. Never ever fake it in pursuit of being liked by anyone because they are experienced people. They will know who you are within a second. Like, even if we talk to our friends and we're faking it, our friends can easily tell us, oh, this person is, they're just pretending. So they are program directors, they are assistant program directors, senior faculty members. They will, instantly tell it off that you're pretending this is not the type of person you are. So, a lot of students come into this, they're like, oh, we're not that much talkative, we're not that much interactive, we are more of an introverted person. It is really hard for us to communicate. And that's okay. They don't want each and every person to be the same within the program. It's a cohort of residents. Every person is different and they're totally fine with it. But they just want you to portray a part of who you are and just be yourself. Never fake it. Just have good English because that is a medium of communication over here. Broken English is a very big giveaway. So if your English is weak, work on it. But if your accent is not understandable, then of course you're not able to understand what you're saying. So work on that a little bit, but never fake your personality. Just be yourself. That's it. That's my biggest advice to anyone. A lot of people pretending within the interview to pretend to do a lot of welfare work, a lot of social work. And it's okay if you just want to Netflix and chill. Nobody's gonna judge you if you didn't save lives outside. So it's totally okay.
I feel like that kind of ties into the personal statement with the storytelling aspect because everyone has such an individual story and being able to present that. Maybe you are bringing up aspects of that in the interview and it just kind of shows that relatability. And the point is that you want to make sure it's a match, right? So if you're not being yourself, that could be detrimental to you as well.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and I also think it's just important. You're gonna have to be with these people for a while, so you should probably have them like you.
They were like,
Um,
"Oh, you told us you were the
and
baseball lie."
Yeah.
right. Yeah, well, great. I wanted to follow up on two other parts of this. The first is research. So I know this is backtracking a little bit, but we missed it and I meant to talk about it. When you talk about how important research is, you mean like your research before applying for match processes or something else?
It is before the match processes because if you
Yeah.
were applying for the application, then you need to have a well-rounded CV. You need to put everything on your CV. You need to be your best version. And so whatever you've done before the match, it is sealed once you apply before the match.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that. What is the importance of the research, but also what are the ways that you can do research in a way that's going to align you best with your most desired match program?
So that's a great question. I've been asked that a lot of times. But in terms of research, do meaningful research. I've seen a lot of students, going into the research. They're like, oh, we just want to have publications. We want to publish a meta-analysis, a case report, a cohort. They're not looking into the basic aspect of it. Why was research designed? So that it can help patients in the future because of the studies that we gather over time. That is basically research, right? So if you're doing research on a subject like a heart attack, everybody knows about the risk factors associated for a heart attack or what the treatment medication is. Do something that is, kind of separate from all of that, that is kind of distinctive, that's kind of unique. That research will make a difference. Do not dive into research just for the sake of authorship. That's what I've seen a lot of students, chasing, that is authorship. They just want to be the author who try to make a difference in terms of patient healthcare long term. And for that, you need to understand the dynamics of research. So do whatever you're interested in. Like, for example, I was involved in RCTs, randomized controlled trials. So we did two drug protocols at Texas Institute of Cardiology, and those drugs are still in phase three clinical trials. So I cannot tell you the drug name, but they're soon to be FDA approved. So that is something what I did because I was really involved in the hematology oncology aspect of it. Like those drugs were tackling cancer, and I was really interested in how the advancements of oncology. So I think that is what matters. Just identify your area of interest and then kind of navigate from there. Make sure what you do is distinctive, unique in terms of research, and then kind of come up with a topic and then go from there.
Great. Yeah, and then the last thing I wanted to ask you about was maybe one of the most challenging parts as an IMG, which is budgeting for the match process. Because everything is in US prices, and US prices, particularly with the exchange rate, can be really high. So, how did you go about budgeting for this process, and what advice do you have for other people?
So the M portion of it, step one, two, and three, that's a fixed price. You have to give it in either way. The only two things that you can budget in is number one, USCEs, US clinical rotations. The second is the mass process. So in terms of US clinical rotations, I always say that rotations should be free, especially if you're an observer. Observerships are always free. Electives are hands-on experiences, and they're done through university programs. So they do charge money. But as a younger graduate, I did not feel any difference in doing an elective and doing an observership. So if you're a younger graduate who graduated within the time frame of 1 to 2 years, then do an observership. That's most likely free. You're going to save tons of thousands of dollars on not doing hands-on experiences. Just observe, and it really doesn't make much of a difference in terms of ERAS CP. The other thing is the match, that if when you apply to programs, the first 20 programs are like $15, and after that per program is $30. That's really expensive. So if you're applying to 200 programs, that's a lot. That's like $6,000, right? So try to only apply to those programs that will take you, like I said. So narrow down programs based on your credentials. Do not apply to programs that won't take you, that won't give you an interview. And by that, I also mean that they won't rank you, because sometimes programs give you an interview just for the sake of it. But when you see their resident demographics, they haven't taken anyone from your country, right? So why will they take you now if they haven't taken anyone in the past 30 years? So there's no point in that. So try to cut it down in terms of that, and you're going to save thousands of dollars onto that. Those are the only two things that you can save your money. Rest you have to pay, because that is the ECFMG fees, that is the exam fee, certification fee, the ERAS token, match token. You have to pay for that. You can't. There's no other way around. But for rotations, you can save tons and tons of money by smart rotations and smart signaling and smart program selection.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think in general, this is a hard thing to do, right? I mean, even just getting to the US is going to be super expensive with the plane flight and everything else, and you got to get an apartment here and all these things. And so it is a big endeavor, and you probably need some savings for it, but the rewards can be pretty great. I am curious then, just kind of as we wrap up this conversation, is there anything that we didn't cover today that you wanted to make sure you shared with people that are looking to follow the same journey?
I will say just one thing, to start early. Do not wait for the last moment. Start your personal statement early, start your ERAS CV early. Do not dive into projects that you cannot complete or you feel that you're going to be overwhelmed. The other thing is that give step three as IMGs. It is really important to have, because we know that step one is just pass and fail now. Only step two has a score. So when you give step three, that kind of tells the programs that, oh, they have maintained their record. They've got great scores in both of them, and they've maintained that certain record. So it kind of gives them the something to compare to. So give step three, start early, start writing your personal statement, because by the end of the time that you're submitting your ERAS CV, that personal statement draft will be probably your 500th draft. So if it's going to be the 500th draft, you have to start early. Start your ERAS early. Do not dive into things that you cannot complete. Do not do research for the sake of research. Do it just because you want to make a difference into healthcare in terms of patient betterment and even modern science. And do things that you're interested in. Align your passion with patient healthcare and then kind of navigate from there. Yeah, just enjoy the most of it. I know it's a nerve wracking process. Do not forget to enjoy yourself through the process. Take care of your health, take care of your mental sanity. Those two things are really important, because sometimes you just need a pat on your back and you're like, I've done the best.
Mhm.
That's what I can do. So take care of yourself, enjoy yourself, take out some time for yourself. I know the match process, the USMLEs, it's the budgeting, it's whether we're gonna match or not. It's such a nerve-wracking process. I understand that, but try to enjoy yourself. Try to take care of yourself. Those two things are really important. Never take health for granted.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. This has been Board Certified, hosted by Tyler from Achievable with Dr. Hashmi. And Achievable has great online courses for the USMLE Step 1, MCAT, PTCE, and PTE, and others. Try them out for free by going to achievable.me.